house.
In our house?
Yeah.
No chance.
You know, it happens in other families.
Well,
You
it
may
wouldn't
eat
happen
your
in
wood.
my family. I mean, if any one of them did that, I wouldn't speak to them ever again.
Do you ever wonder what is beneath the fame and fortune of Hollywood? Fame comes at a price, really. It puts your personal life up there in the spotlight. Bing Crosby is one of the most beloved entertainers of the 20th century. Crosby's life is a good example of how the dark side of fame can go into family life, leaving behind tragedy. This is about the story of Bing Crosby's family, and we'd be focusing on the tragic suicides of his two sons, Dennis and Lindsay. Bing Crosby's complicated personal life and revelations of abuse contributed to the downfall of his children. Bing Crosby is a big-shot actor. His name is known with timeless classics like White Christmas and some heartwarming family films. He was responsible for bringing joy to his audience. However, behind the scenes, his family was fighting demons that would eventually tear them apart. As we get to the darker parts of Crosby's life, from his harsh treatment of his children to the confessions that shocked the world, we get a fuller picture. Bing Crosby's early life and career. Bing Crosby was born Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. on May 3, 1903, in Tacoma, Washington. From a young age, Bing showed an interest in music and entertainment. Crosby's natural talent for singing and his charming, easygoing personality quickly made him a standout performer in school plays and local shows.
Well, there's no real need. I've always been an actor for over 50 years, and it's very hard to get out of something like that.
Crosby's smooth baritone voice and relaxed, conversational singing style set him apart from other performers of the era. He became a regular on radio shows, eventually landing his own program, the Kraft Music Hall, in the 1930s. His success on radio translated into a prolific recording career, with hits like White Christmas, which became the best-selling single of all time. He transitioned seamlessly into film as he starred in a series of successful movies. These films showcased his singing and acting abilities. Films like Going My Way, for which he won an Academy Award for Best Actor, and The Road to series put him up there as a star. Marriage and children. Bing Crosby married Dixie Lee, a singer and actress, in 1930. They had 4 sons together: Gary, Dennis, Philip, and Lindsay. On the outside, they seemed like the perfect Hollywood family, but beneath the surface, things were going on. Dixie Lee was an alcoholic throughout their marriage. Despite her own career in the spotlight, she was often overshadowed by Bing's fame. Her drinking problem became a major issue, and unfortunately, Dixie died of ovarian cancer in 1952 at the young age of 40, leaving Bing to raise their sons alone. This was the beginning of the end. Father-son relationships.
If I live to be 100, I will never know.
Bing Crosby's relationship with his sons was complicated and often troubled. Crosby is known for his strict and demanding parenting style, and he imposed rigorous discipline on his boys. Bing's sons later described him as a perfectionist who expected nothing less than the best from them, often to an unrealistic degree.
And the legs all dangling down, oh, down, oh, down, oh, heating minor, quack, quack, quack.
Gary Crosby, Bing's eldest son, wrote a memoir in which he painted a harsh picture of his father. He claimed Bing was physically and emotionally abusive. He often used a belt for discipline and maintained a cold, distant attitude. While the world saw Bing Crosby as an easygoing entertainer, his sons experienced a very different side of him. The public perception of Crosby as the perfect family man was largely a facade. Behind closed doors, the Crosby household was marked by strife and sadness, particularly after Dixie's death. The confession. So in 1983, Gary Crosby, Bing's oldest son, dropped a surprise with his memoir, Going My Own Way. Gary didn't hold back. He painted a picture of his dad that was a far cry from the cheerful image most people knew. According to Gary, Bing was a strict, demanding father who often resorted to physical and emotional abuse to keep his kids in line.
I sometimes feel that he would have liked to have been able to be more demonstrative than he was. I think that was a thing that bothered him.
Gary recounted specific incidents that were pretty hard to digest. He talked about how Bing would whip them with belts and make them feel worthless with constant criticism. There was one story about Gary being beaten so badly that he had welts on his back for days. The emotional scars, according to Gary, were even worse. He felt that nothing he did was ever good enough for his father, and this led to a lot of anger and resentment. When Gary's book came out, it caused quite a stir. The public was shocked. This was Bing Crosby, after all, the man who sang White Christmas with that beautiful voice and charmed audiences for decades. People didn't want to believe that Bing Crosby could be such a tyrant at home. Other members of the Crosby family had mixed reactions. Bing's second wife, Catherine, and their children defended him, saying Gary's portrayal was exaggerated. They claimed that Bing was a strict but loving father, and that Gary was just bitter and looking for attention. On the other hand, some of Bing's other sons, Dennis and Lindsay, backed up Gary's accounts, adding that their father's harsh discipline had left lasting scars on them too. The lives of Crosby's sons. Gary Crosby. Gary was Bing's oldest son, and he was pretty much born into the spotlight. He had a career in entertainment too, just like his dad. He started out with some promise, getting roles in movies and TV shows, but his career never really took off. Part of that was because he struggled a lot with substance abuse. It seemed like he was always battling with drugs and alcohol. One could say that he is trying to cope with the pressure of living up to his father's legacy. Dennis Crosby. Dennis was another one of Bing's sons who had a pretty rough go at life. He tried to follow in his dad's footsteps too, dabbling in music and acting, but nothing really stuck. Dennis struggled with depression for a long time. On top of that, he had issues with alcoholism and found himself in financial trouble more than once.
I guess I wasn't cut out to be an entertainer. I was always painfully self-conscious out there in the spotlight with my brothers.
In 1991, Dennis took his own life. He shot himself in the head, and it was a devastating blow to the family. These sons had to deal with the emotional scars from Bing's strict and sometimes abusive parenting style. Dennis's death made it clear that the issues Gary talked about in his book were very real and had serious consequences. Lindsay Crosby. Lindsay, like his brothers, struggled with mental health issues and substance abuse. He had a lot of the same problems with depression and alcoholism. Lindsay never really found his footing in life. He tried a few things here and there, but it seems like he couldn't escape the shadow of his father's fame or the pain of his childhood experiences.
Bonzo, 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 Joshua, 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 Joshua.
In 1989, Lindsay also took his own life. Just like Dennis would a couple of years later, he shot himself. The three sons all struggled with similar issues, and for Lindsay, it was just too much to bear. Bing Crosby's later years and death. Even as he got older, Bing Crosby didn't really slow down much. He kept busy with various projects. He still appeared in movies and on TV, and even did some live performances. One of his more notable projects in his later years was the 1971 Christmas special he did with David Bowie. That performance of The Little Drummer Boy / Peace on Earth became popular, especially since it was so unlikely to happen.
Our finest gifts we bring of glory.
But as unfortunately as it comes, with his continued success, Crosby's health started to decline as he got older. He had a few scares, including a battle with lung cancer in the 1970s. Crosby had always been a heavy smoker, so it wasn't a huge surprise when he was diagnosed. He had surgery to remove part of his lung. However, it was clear that his health was taking a toll on him. On October 14, 1977, Bing Crosby died of a heart attack. He was in Spain, of all places, playing golf, which was a sport he absolutely loved. He suddenly collapsed. It was a shock to many, even though he had been dealing with various health issues. When Crosby passed away, his family was in a pretty interesting state. By then, his first wife, Dixie Lee, had been dead for many years, and his relationships with his sons were strained at best. His sons were struggling, just as they struggled throughout their life. Bing's death brought a brief moment of unity as the family came together to mourn him. However, the results of his life and actions still affected his children even long after his death. This may have eventually led to the agitating outcomes that would follow for Dennis and Lindsay Crosby.